them what they can do in their home. That's kind of one of the services we offer. But yeah, this is what they've asked me to cover for the second part this afternoon. And look, I'm going to start with that energy efficiency piece. The energy efficiency piece is really, really important. Probably 15 to 20% of my clients are now either directly referred to me from solar companies, and that normally comes along the phone call of, Adam, we've got a client, we've sold him solar, we put 10 kilowatts of solar on his house or her house, and now he's blowing up at us. And they're like, well, you know, we thought his bills would go down dramatically. He's saying they haven't. Get the client on the phone, he goes, mate, they told me I was going to have a $0 bill after they put this massive big solar array on my house. And now I'm still pretty much paying the exact same rate. And in a lot of cases, their bill has actually even gone up. And that's the issue. I'm not bagging solar. I love solar. It's fantastic. But what they've done is the solar company comes along and they're that busy at the moment, a lot of the low-end companies, they'll just see a big northern-facing roof and go, how much solar can we fit on that? That's what we'll sell you. But if you look at your energy consumption profile, in the morning, most of the time it's double parents working and a couple of kids in the house. So what happens is you get a big load of electricity usage in the morning and then they're all off to work and school. Their energy usage diminishes down to pretty much nothing, running a couple of fridges and a bit of standby power. Solar kicks in at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. People have already left the house. Solar's generating through the middle of the day. It's all going off onto the grid. They're getting paid 5 cents a kilowatt hour, maybe 7 cents if they're lucky. People are starting to come home in the afternoon. Energy usage starts to ramp up. And as such, all that power goes onto the grid. All the power they're using, they're buying off the grid. The energy efficiency piece is really important because people just want to be able to tick a box and make the problem go away. Oh, my bills are high. Okay, let's put solar on it. That's not always your best step. The first step should be understand your energy bills. Number 2, make sure you're on the best possible rate. Number 3, become energy efficient. Then get to solar. So we're going to go through that energy efficiency piece now before you get to solar. The other big benefit, make your house energy efficient. You don't need to put as much solar on your roof because you're not using as much power because you're not wasting electricity. Does that follow for everyone? Lots of nodding heads, fantastic. You're just not allowed to fall asleep on me this afternoon. So this is us, independent. When we come into your home, we're acting on your behalf. We're not acting on behalf of a retailer, a solar company, insulation, anyone. We're there to act for you. And once we do an energy assessment for you, we're pretty much there for life. You have problems or questions in a couple of years' time, we'll do our best to help you out and point you in the right direction. So yeah, we've done over 8,000 homes, big mix. Probably if you look at the mix of our clients now, we talked about that scorecard assessment that we do, which is the government rating tool. If you look at a home in the ACT and it's for sale, jump on realestate.com and have a look at a home in the ACT. Any home will have to advertise its energy efficiency rating. That's coming for the rest of the country. Okay? All of Europe do it. UK does it. Most North America does it. ACT have been doing it for about 11 years. When it's going to become mandatory, we don't know. It already is in the ACT. Victoria, most likely next year. New South Wales, it'll be available and optional for New South Wales to make it a requirement. So what that'll mean is if you're then going to go and sell your home, the data in the ACT goes a lot, and don't quote me on this exactly, but it's a 10-star rating tool. In like-for-like homes, in like-for-like suburbs, for every 1 star across those 10 stars, the house goes up or down in value. It's a 1 to 1.5% swing in the value of the home per star. Average house price, $1 million, is $100,000 to $150,000. So across that star rating, it's starting to have a bit of an impact on the marketplace. And whether that's going to translate into the market in the Southern Highlands, I don't know. Different market in the ACT. Whether it's going to be effective. I talked to a lady in Western Sydney. She was an elderly lady in an old fibro place. And she said, oh, darling, when I sell this house, they're just going to put a bulldozer through it. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So it's not going to make much difference to you. But for a lot of places, if it's a cooler climate like here, if that market awareness starts to get out there, it's going to have an effect on the value of your home. So it's something you might want to start thinking about as a motivator. About 20% of the work we do is scorecard rated related. A lot of it's trialling software in different areas for the government. We just did a big piece of social housing work. The background behind that is the federal budget allocated $500 million for energy efficiency upgrades in people's homes 200 billion of that was allocated for low-income housing. We still don't know exactly how they're going to spend that. Some of the money they're now using to subsidise loans for people, anyone's eligible for these, to do energy efficiency upgrades in your home. You can get a pot of money offered through CommBank, NAB, Westpac, Bendigo, Gateway, etc. They will offer you a low interest loan because the money's coming out through the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, goes to the bank, they offer you this discounted loan so it's cheaper. So if you want to put in insulation, solar, heat pump, hot water, all the banks run slightly different schemes on this. You can access that money and get a low interest loan to do it. The other piece in that financing area around scorecard and energy ratings, and this is what I find really interesting, if you or your siblings or anyone you know, if they've got and I'm not here to give mortgage or finance advice at all, I don't do that, but I'm just making you aware of it. Most of the bigger banks, Westpac just announced their offering last week, they will offer you a discount off your mortgage rate based on the star rating of your home. So I just did a mortgage broker's house last Wednesday. He reckons he's probably going to save about, if you can get to 7 stars, which I can show him how to do, which will be an additional solar. We're going to change his hydronic gas heating to heat pump heating. If he does that, we'll get him past 7 stars. He reckons that's going to save him $70,000 to $80,000 off the life of his loan. His house will be more comfortable and his bills will be lower. Win-win, right? I did a couple in a 3-storey red brick walk-up in Balmain. The finance was a loan from Bendigo or Gateway, one of those. Because of the strata, they couldn't put solar on, so they couldn't get to the 7-star improvement they were looking for. They could only get a 1-star improvement. Just with that 1-star improvement, the discount off their mortgage rate was going to save them $10,000 or $12,000 off the life of their loan. One's a nurse, one's a teacher. That's big bickies to them on public service salaries. Paying off a mortgage, doing that. And guess what? To get that 1-star improvement, guess what they needed to do? Change their shower head. $50. Done. They were stoked. Okay? So there's these sort of things are starting to come into the marketplace. Look to your banks. I have not been able to find one central portal or one central spot where all these different green loan offerings are being offered. If I find one, I'll let you all know. But at the moment, you just got to Google green home loans or green loan home loan improvement and see what you can find. Most banks, if they don't have an offering already, they're coming out. I know NAB's about to do one. Westpac just released theirs last week. Bendigo got one, Gateway got one, Bank Australia, and that's just from the limited research I've done. It's out there. So if you're looking to finance these sort of things, there's an opportunity for you to do that. So yeah, some of the work we do is around that sort of work, but most of the time it's people that just come to us and go, my bills are really high, cost, or I want to do the right thing by the environment. We get a massive spike in calls every time the weather goes cold or gets hot because people are ringing. And a lot of my clients, probably about 20% of them, are people from either North America or from Europe. I had an Irish guy say it to me brilliantly. He goes, I never understood why you Aussie guys were always harping on about Ugg boots. Now I've lived in your leaky, horrible homes. Now I understand why you want Ugg boots. I was like, that's a great analogy. I'm going to use that. Thank you. He said it with a really nice accent, but I can't do it. The competition is, I find some days with that scorecard assessment, a lot of the people, when you tell people what their scorecard rating is, they're only 1 or 2 stars out of 10. They're like, I've just paid $2 million for this home and it's only 2 stars. How do I improve that? So it's almost like I need to beat the Joneses down the road. So that's why that's there. But I've gone through this, understand your energy bills, get the best rates, shop around, become as energy efficient as you can, get solar. But by doing the energy efficiency piece, that means you most likely don't have to put as much solar on. You might want to go, yeah, actually I'm going to put more solar on because I'm going to buy an EV. That's where I'm at the moment. My existing solar system is 1.5 kilowatts. It's tiny. But guess what? If I look at my metering usage and my consumption, I rarely use more than 2,000 watts at any given time. Most of the time, my usage is down around 500 watts. That's the same for most homes. Most homes, you don't use a lot of power consistently. Your usage might spike up when the air conditioning comes on, when you heat the hot water dishwasher, the washing machine goes on, it fluctuates, it goes up and down. I'll shut my laptop. I wonder if I put a slide in. But yeah, We can get access to that data and we can have it put into a little tool and we can actually see it. So it's really fascinating to look at. But because I'm now going to go to an EV, I'll most likely get a bigger system. And that's my plan for next year. Become energy efficient, get solar, batteries. I'm going to get a car. It's just a bigger battery. That's the way I'm looking at it the moment, and just hoping that we can eventually get vehicle to home, vehicle to grid. We've gone through this morning. Hot water is your biggest area of opportunity. If you've got a smart meter, you have a choice. You can be on a flat tariff where your rate will be about 25 to 30 cents a kilowatt hour. It depends on which retailer, what your daily connection fee is, etc. There are always going to be slight variables. Use that Energy Made Easy website to find the best deal. Or you'll be on a time of use tariff. Now it's pretty much open slather. I was just doing some bill comparisons outside with some local residents, and the times are all over the shop. When you do that Energy Made Easy comparison, there's a little button you can click and it'll show you all the different times. For a lot of people, it might be much better for you to just go onto a flat tariff. That's what I've just done. The peak time is 5 till 9 in winter. This last winter when it was about to tick over, I went back to a flat tariff because I want to run my air conditioner when the kids get home from school. So I'll run it at 26 cents a kilowatt hour. No thanks, I don't want to pay 48, 50 cents a kilowatt hour. When it comes back to summer, I'll go back to a time of use tariff, thanks. I'll run the air conditioner during the middle of the day, and because my house is nice and airtight, the cool stays in the home. So it's about changing things and doing however you want to work for you, or you can just go with a flat tariff. And to be quite honest, with all the bill comparisons we do, we probably do about 15, 20 a week. Nowadays, there's not much difference. Per quarter, you're normally talking $15, $20 difference between a time of use tariff or a flat tariff. So most of the time, I'll just say, just go on a flat tariff. You don't have to worry about the times. You know what you're going to get charged, done, dusted. Or if you really want to get into the detail of it and go, no, I want to be monitoring, I want to be watching, I want to be able to see what's going on, go for it, knock yourself out. Does that make sense to everyone? If anyone's got a question, put your hand up or just yell out at me. The more interactive we make it, the better. So once again, there's your old meter. If you've got one of those, you're just on a flat tariff. You can ask to have your meter upgraded, or if you install solar, your meter will be upgraded to a time of use tariff meter. It's your choice. The other thing that'll happen if you install solar, when they come and change your meter, 99% of the time the electricity retailer will automatically flip you onto that time of use tariff. No one can tell me why, but that's just what they do. So just be aware of that, and you won't know until 3 months later when you get that next electricity bill.
About on demand. Can you explain what on demand means?
So basically, yeah, a lot of bills now, you've asked about on demand. A lot of the bills now, and I'm probably seeing it in 5% of the homes that we go into, we'll see it, a demand tariff. Have you got one?
No, I just keep seeing.
Yeah. Has anybody seen a demand tariff on their bill yet? Good, you want to keep it that way. So it's effectively coming down to the retailers from the network companies. It's the retailer's choice, this is my understanding, it's the retailer's choice whether or not they choose to pass it on to you as a customer. So the network tariff, what does it mean? Demand charge, what does it mean? Basically, if you go to a commercial site, a big pub down the road, council libraries, they'll have a demand charge, big energy users. Local shopping centre, well, they have a demand charge. So what it means is the network company's saying, right, we're looking at your energy usage, a really hot summer day, because you're running the air conditioners, the refrigeration units, everything's working harder. Your demand for electricity went through the roof. We need to build the network capacity to be able to deal with that peak demand, okay? So we're going to charge you for that value. Does that make sense to everyone? No? Yes and no. Okay, I'll go back.
No explanation makes sense, but why they're doing it doesn't.
So the explanation makes sense. Yeah. And look, so basically they're saying we've got all this capacity in the network that we have to make available to you to deal with that peak demand, okay? We're going to pass that cost on to you. Because if we don't, when the energy usage peaks up, if they've only got capacity to there, when you get to there, things literally start to go pop. Power, brownouts, all that sort of thing. So the consumers are going, we don't want that. We need to be able to deal with those really hot summer afternoons and those really cold winter nights. And cold winters is where the big one is at the moment. Just before I let you go, I watched a panel show on energy years ago. I loved it because I'm an energy nerd. But it was the head of the network company, so they represent Ausgrid, Endeavour, all the different network companies around the country. And he put out a stat, and don't quote me on the numbers, but it was something along the lines of 30% of the capacity of the network is used for less than 100 hours of the year. So 30% of the value of all the poles and wires transmission is used for less than the equivalent of 4 days of the year. So 30% of the value or the investment is just sitting idle 99% of the time. So they're trying to say for that spike in usage for Mr. Shopping Centre, we're going to pass that cost on to you. That already happens. What they're now doing is saying, Mrs. Jones in 51 Brown Street, on that cold winter's night, you cranked on the air conditioning, turned on the kettle, you had a big spike in demand, we're going to pass that cost on to you. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, completely different discussion. But that's where it's coming from. So,
similar vein, I heard maybe on the radio somewhere that Endeavour was starting to ask its retailers to put everyone on time of use. Have you heard that at all?
I haven't heard that specifically, but it was Endeavour asking, does everyone have a time of use meter? Yeah, my understanding is only about 25%.
But maybe they can then assist.
I had an electricity retailer, I won't name names, and when I went from a time of use tariff back to a flat tariff, they said, no, Ausgrid won't let us. And I went, really? I said, you might want to check that, mate. And then I got on my phone and sent a text message to a mate of mine who's the head of demand management at Ausgrid and said, Craig, I've just got such and such energy company on the phone and they've told me that you guys won't let me go back to a flat tariff. And let's just say he strongly denied that was the case. Fairly fruity language to deny that. So I got back on and the guy went, no, that's what I've been told. And I went, no worries, mate. So I put a complaint into Ombudsman. 2 days later, I had one of the high ups from the electricity retail company call me back and go, sorry, you can do what you want. I went, too late, I've gone elsewhere, I'll see you later, guys. And they went, yeah, look, we stuffed up, da-da-da. We've got to change our scripts. I'm like, yeah, whatever, of course.
People in Victoria, somebody away for 28 days out of a month, they used electricity on the last 2 days, and they got a demand charge. I don't know if this is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
For the whole month.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that people are saying, oh, you get smart meters because it can really help you control your energy bills. But it seems to work is that the smart meter is all in favour of the people who are making the money out of energy and not so much. I do take into account your point about the grid has to cope.
I'm not justifying it.
No.
I'm just explaining it.
And so, but what you said today has now got us really interested because I'm like to understand that you have a smart meter, but you can tell the electricity company in winter, I want to go over to a flat rate.
Yeah.
Right.
It's your choice. If you've got a smart meter, you can be on a time of use tariff or a flat tariff.
Yes. But Origin, one of their bills that they actually sent us a letter saying, from now on, we are going to install a smart meter in your home because actually opt out of that and go to some trouble to say, no, we don't want it smart.
With the meters, it's now what's called a contestable service. So it used to be the only people that could put a meter into your meter box, and this is the arrangement, right? Pole in the street, that's owned by Endeavour. The wire to your house, that's owned by Endeavour. The wire that goes from, wherever it clips onto your house to the meter board, that's yours. The meter board is yours. The meter is Endeavour's. That's the way it works. Now that meter, it's a contestable service, AGL, Origin, they can provide you with that meter. Some of the times they will even now, they'll charge you a quarterly fee for utilising their meter, which they might have provided you for free. This is where you need to be careful. If you need to do anything to your meter, do it through Endeavour, not through a third party. Endeavour is the one that's going to be there long term for you. If the power goes down, it's Endeavour that comes and fixes it. Like last week, I'll give raps to Ausgrid. I do work for them every once in a while, but I had a branch come down, just missed my car, and my son and I were out the front cleaning it up, and Dad went, look out, that other branch is about to come down. It was basically like a 10-metre stem of a tree, landed on the wire between the pole and my house, and I'm like, better go and start cooking dinner before that comes down. Got dinner cooked, And sure enough, half an hour later, the other branch came down and went line out. Ausgrid were there within probably an hour and a half to make it safe, because I had a live line across the front of my lawn. The next day at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they came and put a new line in for me. No problem, easy. I was astounded by them. And that was when those high winds were on. So the biggest things you want to do, and this is what we see, it's repeated in every home we go through. It's the same stuff 90% of the time. You want to seal up the house as much as you possibly can. Make it as airtight as you possibly can. Upgrade or replace your insulation. Window coverings and glazing, really, really important. One of the biggest leak points in your house, apart from direct leaks and your insulation, and then it's about heating efficiently. Doot. So this is where all the different leak points in your home are. There's a lot of them, right? And you know what they add up to in the average New South Wales home? A 1 square metre hole. So when you're using all this electricity, buying it off the grid or generating it out of your solar to either heat or cool your home, guess where it's all going? An average New South Wales home leads into this, right? Who's heard of passive house? Yeah, great, so we're all aware. Passive house is pretty much the highest standard for building a home in the world, right? All homes in Nordic countries, Scotland, Iceland, Scandinavia, Canada, Alaska, they all build to what's called passive house standard. The house has to be airtight. Why? Because it's freezing cold, and when we use all that energy to put it in, we want to keep that heat in the home, right? So how do you test to get to that passive house standard? They do a door blower test. They close off all the rest of the house, all the windows and doors, open up normally front door, laundry door, whatever's best. Put this in, it's a big expandable sheet, it's airtight, fits into the door jamb, it's got a big fan built into it. That fan, when they turn it on, is replicating an external wind. I'm pretty sure it's 35 kilometres an hour. It's not a really strong breeze. It's trying to suck air out of the home, okay? We're trying to see how many, like a reasonably windy day, how many times are we going to, how much air are we losing out of the home? To get a passive house standard, the maximum size hole in the whole building envelope, doors, windows, everything, smaller than a 20-cent piece. So you can only have 0.2 of an air exchange of the entire building envelope over an hour. If you do this test to an average home in New South Wales, in 1 hour, take a guess how many times the entire volume of air inside your home is exchanged. Very close, 19. So basically every 3 minutes for an average home, the entire volume of air inside your home is being exchanged. So whatever you can do to make your house as airtight as you possibly can, that's the first thing you want to do in this energy efficiency step. The council, God bless them, they've now finally listened to someone and gone out and purchased, I think they've got, how many have they got, 1 or 2? Let's go with 1. 1 thermal camera. It's a little device you can borrow, take home, crank on the air conditioning, either hot or cold, and you can walk around the house and see all these gaps and go, right, that's where all the hot air is going. That's where all the cold air is going if it's summer. Costs you nothing. Cheap as chips. Most cost-effective thing you can do to make your house more energy efficient is seal it up, okay? So it's stuff like gaps around the door. If you look at a door, say you've got a 2 mil gap around the whole door, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's a hole that big. If you've got the laundry door, the back door, all of a sudden you've got a hole this big for those 3 doors. Then you've got gaps around some of the old windows. Gaps getting bigger and bigger. Then you've got, who's still got wall vents in their home? The nice ornate plastered ones. Anybody got wall vents? Vents in the, yeah, 1, 2. They were brought into the building code way back when, and I had to check this with so many sources before I'd believe it, because I just thought it was ridiculous. Originally put into the building code to deal with the Spanish flu pandemic. Because it was similar to what we had with COVID, airborne, they realised we need to vent this stuff out of the homes, okay? Then they kept them in the building code to deal with the fact that we were burning oil, coal, gas, all of this sort of stuff. You need to flue the exhausts out, okay? We're not doing that anymore, so close them off. Otherwise, they're a big hole. A lot of the homes I go into, every bedroom, every room's got 2 or 3 of them. Unfortunately, my advice to people is you're going to have to get someone to come in, knock them off, replaster that hole and then repaint the whole house. I'm like, yeah, sorry, but that's the reality. That's the best thing you can do because you're closing off all those gaps. Some of the ones, if they look like this, you can literally buy a little vent cover. It's one of those ornate plastery things. You can either get in there with a foam gun or a silicone gun, or you can knock it off and replaster. Or if they're one of these flat ones, you can literally buy these online. And it's just like a wall vent cover. I bought 6 of them from Bunnings, beat a silicone around it, done, dusted, closed off, okay? So it's all about, this is a chimney exhaust vent, a chimney flue. So you can buy these in all sorts of different sizes, stick a camera up the chimney, figure out what the size of the fluid. You can buy one of these online for 30, 40, 50 bucks, cheap as chips. Gaps, when we go around with a thermal camera, always see underneath bathroom and kitchen cabinetry, there's always this big blue line of cold air coming into the house if it's winter. Why? Because behind all the cabinetry, your plumbers come along, made a nice big hole in the building envelope and then put a little pipe through it. And now there's a nice big hole. So if you can get access either through the floor or through the side wall or through the cabinetry, get yourself a tube of this stuff from your hardware store. Costs you like $10, $12 and it's expandable spray foam. I did underneath my house, it took me 1 tube of foam and it took me about half an hour max. Go in and seal up all those holes. Otherwise, you've just got all these other holes. You're starting to see where I'm coming from? Fixing up all these gaps is really easy. The other resource, if anyone's taking notes, and I'll send this out to Mo and she can send it out to you, there's a really good website for stuff to put around your doors and windows. It's called ecomaster.com.au. ecomaster.com.au. Really good product. I'm bringing a lot of European stuff for door jambs and windows and different types of windows. It's all there. Insulation. This is where you lose heat out of your building, out of your home. Biggest is your ceiling, 25 to 35%. Then your walls, 15 to 25%. Then the air leakage and the floor. What are the areas that we can easily address? We've just talked about the air leakage, right? There's 15, 20%. Let's knock that on the head. Nice and cheap, nice and easy for you to do. Make your home much more comfortable. Ceiling, that's a big one. So whatever we can do to put that insulation into the ceiling, really important. When you have insulation, it's measured in R value. The higher the R number, the more effective the insulation. So a home down here would, pretty sure for here, it'll either be an R6 if you're doing a new build, that's the requirement. Most homes would probably, if they've got anything in there, most likely if they've got maybe an R25 and it's probably 15 years old and compressed and pretty much useless. So if you're going to upgrade your insulation, you need to get to an R5. That's the effectiveness of the insulation. Down the bottom here, if there's a percentage of the insulation missing or there's a gap, right? So if you take an R4 bat, I still can't figure out how to get the pointer on this working. Anyway, oh, that wasn't good. Not that button then. Yeah, I'll try the top button and see what happens. There we go, got it. Okay, so an R4, if you just have just a 5% gap in that R4 blanket, it diminishes down to what, an R22. So almost halves, just with a 5% gap in that insulation blanket. 15% gap, it's effectively useless, right? It's like putting a blanket on yourself and then cutting holes in it. It just doesn't work. This is what most households look like through a thermal camera. The bright yellow that you see, that's where there's no insulation, gaps in the insulation. That's a wall, up a hallway. I don't know where these ones are from, but I can pull these slides. I was just talking to people outside. I pulled my phone out and went, oh, this is the last house I went to. 99% of the homes that I go to, this is what they look like. And that's if they have insulation. Most homes, your insulation, so 25 to 30% of your heating is going out directly out through your ceiling chute because your insulation is rubbish. So you can re-insulate a home for, $3,000, $4,000. You can get a low discount loan from the government to do it if you need to. This is your low-hanging fruit. How am I going for time? Just about to wrap up. So As I said, I can pull these slides out of any home that I do. This is so common. What happens is electricians, aircon, fridgy guys, go up into the ceiling space, get the insulation out of the way, do your work, see you later, not my problem. So that is one of the biggest things you can do. I'm not talking about spending 20 grand on solar or anything like that. Get your insulation fixed. Your house is going to be more comfortable. Make it airtight. Biggest things you can possibly do. Then if you've got access, do your subfloor insulation. If you can do your ceiling, your air leakage and your subfloor, you're up to 70, 80% of your loss. Walls are hard to retrofit. You either pull off the internal sheet or you're pulling off your external cladding. Or there are some companies, they'll come in and they'll put in blow-in insulation. Yeah, then it sloughs, it's not great. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it properly. If you are going to get your insulation done, tell the installer, hey, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to check your workmanship. The council, they offer me a thermal camera so I can go around and check to make sure that there's no gaps in the insulation once you're done. Okay? So just hover that above their head. Okay, windows. Who's got pelmets in their house? Yeah? I do. My house was built by a crazy old Dutch guy. Every window's got a big timber pelmet on it. People tell me they're ugly. I don't care. So anyway, how does a pelmet work? Righto. First rule of thermodynamics, hot and cold always want to exchange, right? So you're using your air conditioner, your fireplace, your whatever, your gas heater to create heat inside your home. Where does hot air go? Hot air rises. So then the hot air gathers at the ceiling. The glass is really cold because it's winter and it's cold outside. Hot and cold want to exchange. So the warm air gets drawn to the glass, you lose heat through the glass, you get condensation, you get a cold draft coming out because all the heat loss has occurred and you're now losing heat out of the windows, right? So how do we fix that? We put a little pelmet in, little box. These curtains should be touching the floor. Heavy curtains and pelmets are more effective than upgrading your windows to double glazing. Much cheaper too. A lot of people don't like the look of curtains though. One of the things you can do is put in a hidden pelmet. So it just sits behind there. So cheap, easy, cost-effective thing to be doing. And as I said, heavy-lined pelmets, heavy-lined curtains with a pelmet, more effective than double glazing. Most of your homes are probably down here. Heavy-lined drapes, no pelmet. So you want to get up there. Much, much more effective. Average cost, like I advocate to most people, if someone here was mentioned they're going to build a passive house, a couple of people, yeah, you'll probably be looking at the UPVC windows. Who's watched Grand Design in the last couple of years? Yeah. You know, you can see those windows and they open this way and then you can open them that way. They do all sorts of different fancy things. That's this stuff. And it's ultraviolet treated PVC. So it's plastic. Okay, it's a coating. It's still got a steel frame in the middle of it. There's all stainless steel fittings and handles and locks and latches. It's a pretty cost-effective way to do it now. You used to not be able to get these in Sydney. I now know of 8 different manufacturers in Sydney alone. They bring the materials out from Europe. A lot of it's made in Turkey, apparently. They just bring out the runs of the frames. It just comes out in big, long containers in different colours. The other thing I'm doing with mine, the internal fitting is white. The external is a nice timber colour. I can just buy that off the shelf. Each window, I'm getting 8 windows and $10,500 they will be installed. It's almost now down there with single glazed aluminium frame. Because PVC is cheap, right? Aluminium's expensive. This is an option for you, but once again, what's cheaper for you? Heavy line drapes with a pelmet. The most cost-effective thing you can do. You can buy from 3M, jump online, and it's basically a plastic film. With insulation, most importantly you need to understand, it's not actually the material that's the insulation property, it's the air. In your insulation blanket, just think of it like a goose down jacket or a goose down doona. If your goose down doona, when you first buy it, it's fluffy and it's snug and it really keeps you nice and cosy. After 10 years' time, when all those feathers have slowly compressed, it doesn't really do much for you because it's not actually the feathers that are keeping you warm, It's the air that's trapped within all those layers in between the feathers. That's what keeps you warm, okay? So it's just like an insulation blanket. Once it compresses, it loses its effectiveness. When you're doing this, and that's what happens with double glazing, it's not actually the glass, it's the glass, then the air, then the glass. That's what keeps you, that's the insulation property. The ones I'm getting are filled with argon gas, which is even more insulative than just normal air. So that's what your insulation property is. By doing something like this, or like this, you're creating that layer of air which slows down that transition of energy. That's the whole idea. Super cheap way to do it. I see a lot of this in people's homes nowadays. Helmets is still a bit of a battle because people don't like the look of them, but yeah, you can do it at a lower option. This can be, this 3M stuff, off the internet, literally install it with a pair of scissors and a hairdryer. Cheap as chip, easy to do. The reason a lot of people, and you'll hear every one of the previous speakers talking about using heat pumps or air conditioners to heat or cool, air conditioning and reverse cycle air conditioners are now the most cost-effective way to heat or cool your home. From a cost, from an energy usage, that's just the reality. Do you remember those old window rattlers we used to have? Little square air conditioners used to fit into a window jamb? Anyone remember those? When you had those, older technology, it used to be for every 1 kilowatt of power you put into it, or its input power, you'd get about 0.7, if you were lucky, of a kilowatt of coolth or warmth out of it. Nowadays, you put in 1 kilowatt and you get about 4 kilowatts out of it because they become so much more efficient. If you're going to put in new heating or new cooling into your home, reverse cycle air conditioning is pretty much the most efficient way to do it. So yeah, jump in.
Just a quick question on the air conditioning. Is a large air conditioning running at half rate more efficient than a smaller air conditioning running at flat?
How big's the house? Have you got fans? How leaky's the house? What's your insulation? Ideally, what you want to do, this is where you want to get yourself to. Make the house as airtight as you possibly can. Get your insulation sorted as best you possibly can. Have you got solar? Middle of the day, crank it up. Crank the aircon, and then get the thermal camera and look for all those little gaps. Get really good and friendly with your silicon gun. Seal that house up as best you possibly can. There's too many variables for me to make that calculation. And I don't know the maths of how to do it anyway, to be honest. It's a question I get asked a lot. My response is normally what I've just said to you. Make the house as airtight as you possibly can and then run it constantly through the day. When you see an air conditioning unit kick up, big spike in usage and then it goes along. That spike is normally only for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes max, and then it's pretty consistent energy usage. If you've got solar, do you have solar monitoring? Does it measure both your generation and your consumption? So you should be able to see exactly how much you're using. So you're probably more empowered to make that quantification than me. Have a look at that. Generally, the idea is to make that house airtight, use the solar, run it during the day when it's free, away you go. And get ceiling fans. That's the other point I'll make. Who's got ceiling fans? Get them. It's an order. And use them. Because what happens if we go back just one slide or a couple, your hot air rises. So in winter, you put your fan in reverse, creates a convection effect, brings that hot air back down to you. Okay, because otherwise your hottest air, what you're paying for, is up in the ceiling. Who's benefiting from that? No one. In summer, your coldest air is hugging the floor. Your cat, your dog will be, this is great. Your core body's up here. So you want to pick that cold air up and move it across your body. Rule of thumb with your air conditioner, for every 1 degree you go up or down in summer or winter, use an additional 10% of energy. Air cons, you're measuring in thousands of watts how much power they use. A ceiling fan, maximum 80, 90 watts. So by saving that 10% through using a fan, or save 20% by knocking 2 degrees off, you'll feel more comfortable with that air being blown across your skin, and you're going to save as well. So get ceiling fans, they're fantastic.